Yeah, and 1 billion people taken out of poverty, pretty much 800 million people.
Absolutely amazing. But to me, that was what I'm trying to say, which is this. But the state control didn't go away. I understand that. I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is this. He tried to design the incentives to let the Chinese people build them. I mean, I don't think he built them out. He gave them a framework to build themselves. And that was, and they did amazing. And I think, and to me, he's a hero of somebody who could, you're saying, yes, he kept the government in control. And I'm saying, well, here's the problem is, I agree with you. The government is being controlled by interest.
Yeah, in America, capital controls the government.
Don't have the best organizing going on. I got a letter. I got a letter from one of my banks. I don't have a whole lot of money in that particular account. At the same time, it's very interesting what the letter said. They're changing their terms of service to allow them make it easier for them to change my account or depositors' accounts from one account type to another type of account. And why? And then there's some stuff in there about different flags and well, it's almost like in 2008, 2009, they're discussing like the systemic problems with the 2008 bailout. Just kind of painted over. Like the problems that led to it were still around. He said the next one they're just going to do it in the bail, where they bail the banks out instead of giving the banks taxpayer money. They'll just take the taxpayer money out of the banks. Like they'll just confiscate bank accounts.
And I completely agree with you. And I think that what he did was redefine the relationship between government and people. And, he said we have a real responsibility to each other, and this government is going to make sure that we do this, and it's not, kind of
See, what was I going to do today?
free for all. It's not a
This is a time killer.
Everybody has rights.
It's like just running the clock.
So that's one of the reasons why I'm not even defending the term limit structure within the term limit changes under Xi Jinping. It's not something that I care about all that much. But what are some of the structural changes that he made as far as like his governance or?
All right. I came across a little. I'll show you. This is one of my more favorite. There we go. This get back to the top of it. These are like old newspapers or magazines. International Magazine of Literature, Art, and Science, Volume 2, New York. Look at that, February February 1851. This is just magazines in the ghetto of Rome. These different articles, and they're not very long. It's just there's a term for this type of stuff. Egypt under the pharaohs. I think that was First Place Society. Rossini in the kitchen. These are 18. This is what people are reading about 1851. Describe this magazine. The First Peace Society. Egypt under the pharaohs. This rather long one for. Yeah, I don't know if I want to read that one. Camille Desmoulins. In an admirable life of Camille Desmoulins, recently published in Paris by M. Edmond Fleury, his summing up of the character of the Wilx Cordelier presents a type of some of the heroes of the revolution of 18... What revolution? 1848. Such was Camille Desmoulins. I have traced his portrait without pity, without hatred, I dare not say without passion. In him I wished to mark the truest and most finished type of those infâmes perdus of anarchy, who, without ever attaining illustration in history or serious influence in a government, thirst after distinction and renown, ambitious of credit and importance, scourges of their country, torment of their relatives, traitors to their friends, their own executioners, flambeaux that burn without light, vain and mediocrity, spirits consumed by the most intense jealousy, presumptuous fools, irritated by their own impotence, intrepid in a pamphlet and pusillanimous action. They, nevertheless, carried away by the flood which they have let loose, stake in this terrible game of revolutions not only their lives, but the honor of their posthumous fame. How different the aspects of these fiends as they are presented to us, sicklied order, with the sentiment of Lamartine. The revolution, so this magazine is 1851, they're talking about revolution 1848. Huh. The battle of the churches in England. Oh. Is this Christians again? The Westminster and Foreign Quarterly Review for January 1851 contains a great article on the controversies occasioned by the recent movements of the Roman Catholics in Great Britain. It is very long, making 60 pages, and very able, reviewing the battle from an unusual and to most people perhaps a not very accessible point of view. It throws a startling light on many matters forgotten or ignored by the more immediate combatants. It may therefore be perused with interest and advantage by partisans of every shade. Protestant and Catholic will find their account in it, especially as helping them to information of which they are greatly deficient, a knowledge of each other's strong points as well as their weak ones. There is much in the views of the writer with which we cannot ourselves concur, but we are not insensible of the force and precision with which he has mapped out a large part of the field, and given a saliency to some of the great principles at stake, which it is the natural tendency of discussions involving so much of the conventional and given in formulistic calamitously to observe. The battle in the foreground may be about candlesticks, surplices, genuflections, but there are involved many things infinitely more vital, as the author of this Battle of the Churches will be admitted to have illustrated with great success. Many ponderous volumes might be named, which have not contributed a tenth as much to clear understanding of the question as the one article in the Westminster. We have not space for a complete resume of it. We can only present an extract or two. The following brings forward tendencies too little in my hand a book. I have another book that's very similar to it. Here it is. Tyndale. Not the most popular of Bible manufacturers and Bible publishers. The Living Bible, paraphrased. And then we have the Catholic edition. So I suppose the one is the Catholic edition, so I assume this is the General Protestant edition. We had mean to go through these and compare the books. My pastor, we use the King James version, and well, he keeps on talking about how many books, like 66 books, something. I don't have it memorized. And yet, some Bibles have more books in them. So, the one I wanted to read today. It was just so beautiful. Sirach. Oh, Ecclesiasticus. You know, going to the one I was looking at the other night. That guy, Zechariah. No, where's Hosea? Here it is. And this is kind of modern day writing. Hosea, Hosea, in chapter 9. O Israel, rejoice no more as others do, for you have deserted your God and sacrificed to other gods on every threshing floor. Therefore your harvests will be small, your grapes will blight upon the vine. You may no longer stay here in this land of God. You will be carried off to Egypt and Assyria, and live there on scraps of food. There, far from home, you are not allowed to pour out wine for sacrifice to God, for no sacrifice that is offered there can please him. It is polluted, just as food of mourners is. All who eat such sacrifices are defiled. They may eat this food to feed themselves, but they may not offer it to God. What then will you do on holy days, on days of feasting to the Lord, when you are carried off to Assyria as slaves? Who will inherit your possessions left behind? Egypt will. She will gather your dead. Memphis will bury them, and thorns and thistles will grow up among the ruins. The time of Israel's punishment has come. The day of recompense is almost here, and soon Israel will know it all too well. The prophets are crazy. The inspired men are mad. Yes, so they mock, for the nation is weighted with sin, and shows only hatred for those who love God. I appointed the prophets to guard my people, but the people have blocked them at every turn and publicly declared their hatred, even in the temple of the Lord. The things my people do are as depraved as what they did in Gibeah long ago. The Lord does not forget. He will surely punish them. O Israel, how well I remember those first delightful days when I led you through the wilderness. How refreshing was your love. How satisfying, like the early figs of summer in their first season. But then you deserted me for a bottle of Peor, to give yourselves to other gods, and soon you were as foul as they. The glory of Israel flies away like a bird, for your children will die at birth, or perish in the womb, or never even be conceived. If your children grow, I will take them from you. All are doomed. Yes, it will be a sad day when I turn away and leave you alone. In my vision, I have seen the sons of Israel doomed. The fathers are forced to lead their sons to slaughter. O Lord, what shall I ask for your people? I will ask for wombs that don't give birth, for breasts that cannot nourish. All their wickedness began in Gilgal. There I began to hate them. I will drive them from my land because of their idolatry. I will love them no more, for all their leaders are rebels. Ephraim is doomed. The roots of Israel are dried up. she shall bear no more fruit. And if she gives birth, I will slay even her beloved child. My God will destroy the people of Israel because they will not listen or obey. They will be wandering Jews, homeless among the nations. That's like that's like angry writing. What do you think it means? I don't know.
I felt like, and I'll give you a perfect example. People are always saying to me, you know, you spend a ton of time in environmentalism, but you're firmly invested in fossil fuels. And the answer is sure. Everybody invested in fossil fuels. It's a huge part of the economy. We invested less in our share, but we invested in fossil fuels. And I decided I can't invest in fossil fuels. We need to divest. We need to get out of all these things. And I felt like I can't change, even though I started that.
Effective March 23rd, 2026. Now read the name of the bank out. Bank has updated its personal account agreement. If you have any questions about your bank account, please call customer care at effective March 23rd, 2026. The following item has been updated. Converting account and revoking privileges. Without limiting our ability to close your account, we may alternatively convert your account to another type of account or revoke privileges when we consider it appropriate or necessary to do so. For example, we may revoke privileges or convert your account to another type of account if you make frequent transactions on a money market or savings account. If your account frequently has debits against uncollected funds, generally funds from recent deposits, or credits for which we have not received final settlements, and this is in bold, if your account has excessive overdraft or returned item activity, then this normal type. If your account has excessive deposit activity, or if you use a personal account for business purposes, if we decide in our sole discretion to no longer offer an account type, you agree we may convert your account to another type of account. That one actually makes a little bit of sense. It's called a savings account. It shouldn't have the kind of withdrawals that a checking account should have. And what does it have to do with like the interest rates that you get for putting in one type of account versus another? So I'm worried about like creditors like sending judgments from like default judgments because they don't tell you. They're not no longer, oh, the legal system is just, oh, it's a mess right now. Stop payment orders. Paragraph 3. You may furnish stop payment order orally or in writing. Orally or in writing. The order will remain in effect for, you may have 12 lined out 6 months. So that's what they changed. Oh, the bold stuff is the updates. Okay, the order will remain in effect, so they changed it from 12 months to 6 months. It must be renewed by you from 12 to 6 months to remain in effect. Stop payment. I guess if we have an automatic deposit, automatic withdrawals for like child support. If you do not renew the stop payment order when it expires and the item is presented for payment, we may pay the item and charge it to your account. There is a charge for each stop payment order and renewal order requested. And then they have pre-authorized or automatic payments or transfers. Right to stop payment and procedures for doing so. The right to stop payment. Where how many people have been upset because they're like, no, I turn it off. Turn it off. I cancel my subscription. I'm trying to cancel my subscription. So Judges 19, because I like these different Bibles because the different authors or different people will put, well, student Bibles. I have one, I have a King James, and just very, it doesn't really have footnotes. when I was reading Hosea, it referred to that Gilba, Judges 19:14. We'll just do Judges 19. At this time, before Israel had a king, there was a man of the tribe of Levi living on the far side of the hill country of Ephraim, who brought home a girl from Bethlehem in Judah to be his concubine. But she became angry with him and ran away and returned to her father's home in Bethlehem and was there about 4 months. Then her husband, taking along a servant and an extra donkey, went to see her to try to win her back. Oh, from concubine to wife. Huh. All right. So when he arrived at her home, she let him in and introduced him to her father, who was delighted to meet him. And he hadn't met her father before he turned her into concubine? Her father urged him to stay a while, so he stayed 3 days, and they all had a very pleasant time. Oh my goodness. The elopers. On the fourth day, they were up early, ready to leave, but the girl's father insisted on her having breakfast first. And then he pleaded with him to stay one more day, as they were having such a good time. At first, the man refused, but his father-in-law kept urging him until finally he gave in. The next morning, they were up early again, and again the girl's father pleaded, "Stay just today and leave sometime this evening." So they had another day of feasting. That afternoon, as he and his wife and servant were preparing to leave, his father-in-law said, "Look, it's getting late. Stay just tonight, and we will have a pleasant evening together, and tomorrow you can get up early and be on your way." But this time the man was adamant, so they left, getting as far as Jerusalem, also called Jebus, before dark. His servant said to him, "It's getting too late to travel. Let's stay here tonight." "No," his master said, "we can't stay in this heathen city where there are no Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah or possibly Ramah." So they went on. The sun was setting just as they came to Gibeah, a village of the tribe of Benjamin. So they went there for the night, but as no one invited them in, they camped in the village square. Just then an old man came by on his way home from his work in the fields. He was originally from the hill country of Ephraim, but was living now in Gibeah, even though it was in the territory of Benjamin. When he saw the travelers camped in the square, he asked them where they were from and where they were going. "We're on the way home from Bethlehem in Judah," the man replied. "I live on the far edge of the Ephraim hill country near Shiloh, but no one has taken us in for the night, even though we have fodder for our donkeys and plenty of food and wine for ourselves." "Don't worry," the old man said. "Be my guest, for you mustn't stay here in the square. It's too dangerous." So he took them home with him. He fed their donkeys while they rested, and afterward they had supper together. Just as they were beginning to warm to the occasion, a gang of sex perverts gathered around the house and began beating at the door, yelling at the old man to bring out the man who was staying with him so they could rape him. The old man stepped outside to talk to them. "No, my brothers, don't do such a dastardly act," he begged, "for he is my guest. Here, take my virgin daughter and this man's wife. I'll bring them out and you can do whatever you like to them, but don't do such a thing to this man." But they wouldn't listen to him. Then the girl's husband pushed her out to them, and they abused her all night, taking turns raping her until morning. Finally, just at dawn, they let her go. She fell down at the door of the house and lay there until it was light. When her husband opened the door to be on his way, he found her there, fallen down in front of the door with her hands digging into the threshold. "Well, come on," he said. "Let's get going." But there was no answer, for she was dead. So he threw her across the donkey's back and took her home. When he got there, he took a knife and cut her body into 12 parts and sent one piece to each tribe of Israel. Then the entire nation was roused to action against the men of Benjamin because of this awful deed. There hasn't been such a horrible crime since Israel left Egypt, everyone said. We've got to do something about it. It's kind of an interesting, like horrifying story in there. Dude threw his own wife out to be raped and then like cut her body into pieces and sent them to like the tribes. Like, oh,
Don't mean to, I don't mean to push you, but that's almost identical to what Gavin Newsom said to Ben Shapiro, when Ben Shapiro said, do you think there's a genocide going on in Gaza?
What I think is this. I think that this Israeli government has been trying to take over the entire country and expel the Palestinians and take over the whole thing.
well, there weren't any Israelites in Jerusalem in those days. There sure are now.
And they were willing to commit more crimes to do it. That's what I think. And that's been going on for a long time.
So you don't want to make a, you're not committing to the term genocide.
I don't actually, do I think, you tell me if this is what I mean, because it's sort of like socialism, is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think they're trying to kill all the Palestinians? No.
No,
I don't. I think they're trying to expel the Palestinians from the country that they're trying to
That
have
would be a
one
genocide.
state.
That would be genocidal intent.
I don't know what that is, but that's what they're trying to do.
That is a genocide.
They're clearly trying to take over the West Bank. They're clearly trying to take over Gaza. They're willing to, go to extreme merciless lengths in order to do that. That's what there's a history of 10 years of doing that.
And it's longer than 10 years.
Well, whatever, yeah.
Started off with ethnic cleansing in 1948.
But that's what's going on. I don't know I honestly don't know what genocide means, but what I do know is they are trying to end up controlling the whole state, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So,
Okay, I mean, that is what, at least according to, the,
Where did I leave off in reading this? Oh yeah. A true British Protestant whose notions of popery are limited to what he hears from an evangelical curate or has been at the opening of a Jesuit church looks on the whole system as an obsolete mummery and no more believes that men of sense can seriously adopt it than that they will be converted to the practice of eating their dinner with a Chinaman's chopsticks instead of the knife and fork. He pictures to himself a number of celibate gentlemen who glide through a sort of minuet by candlelight around the altar and worship the creature instead of the creator, and keep the Bible out of everybody's way, and make people easy about their sins. And he is positive that no one above a poor Irishman can fail to see through such nonsense. Few even of educated Englishmen have any suspicion of the depth and solidity of the Catholic dogma, its wide and various adaptation to wants ineffaceable from the human heart. Its wonderful fusion of the supernatural into the natural life, its vast resources for a powerful hold upon the conscience. We doubt whether any single Reformed church can present a theory of religion comparable with it in comprehensiveness, in logical coherence, in the well-guarded disposition of its parts. Into its interior view, however, the popular polemics neither give nor have the slightest insight, and hence it is a common error both to underrate the natural power of the Romish scheme and to mistake the quarter in which it is most likely to be felt. It is not among the ignorant and vulgar, but among the intellectual and imaginative, not by appeals to the senses and worship, but by consistency and subtlety of thought, that in our days converts will be made to the ancient church. We have receded far from the Reformation by length of time. The management of the controversy has degenerated. It has been debased by political passions and turned upon the grossest external features of the case. And when a thoughtful man accustomed to defer to historical authority, and if he has been a mere authority and competent to estimate moral theories as a whole, is led to penetrate beneath the surface, he is unprepared for the sight of so much speculative grandeur, and if he has been a mere Anglican or Lutheran, is perhaps astonished into the conclusion that the elder system has the advantage in philosophy and antiquity alike. From this, among other causes, we incline to think that the Roman Catholic reaction may proceed considerably further in this country ere it receives any effectual check. The academical training and the clerical training of the upper classes have not qualified them to resist it. At the other end of society, there are large masses who cannot be considered inaccessible to any missionary influence. Affectionately and perseveringly applied. Not all men in a crowded community are capable of the independence, the self-subsistence, without which Protestantism sinks into personal anarchy. The class of weak, dependent characters that cannot stand alone in the struggle of life. Oh, okay, sorry. I only have my one little laptop screen, so I had to go back and make sure that. The class of weak, dependent characters that cannot stand alone in the struggle of life are unprovided for in the modern system of the world. The cooperative theorist tries to take them up, but somehow or other he is usually a man with whom, by a strange fatality, cooperation is impossible, intent on uniting all men, yet himself not agreeing with any, with individuality so intense and exclusive that it produces all the effect of intolerant self-will, and thus the very plans which by his hypothesis are inevitable are by his temper made impracticable. He appeals, however, unsuccessfully to the uneasiness felt by the feeble in the strife and pressure of the world. He fills the imagination with visions of repose and sympathy. He awakens the craving for unity and incorporation in some vast and sustaining society. And whence is this desire, disappointed of its first promise, to obtain its satisfaction? It is impossible that it may accept proposals from this most ancient, the most august, the most gigantic organization which the world has ever seen, that it may take refuge in a body which invests indigence with sanctity, which cares for its members one by one, which has a real past instead of a fancy future, and warms the mind with the coloring of rich traditions, which, in providing for the poorest want of the moment, enrolls the disciple in a commonwealth spread through all ages and both worlds. Whatever socialistic tendency may be diffused through the English mind is not unlikely, in spite of a promise diametrically opposite, to turn to the advantage of the Catholic cause. This is a long article too. Oh, okay. Here is another valuable contribution to the philosophy of this controversy. There are few positions more relied on by Roman Catholics, or more thoroughly unsound and fallacious, than the assertion that there are no essential differences between the position of Roman Catholics and of Protestants as regards the state. and the English established church. If we had to deal simply with a form of worship and theology, there would be no ground for distinguishing between the case of the Catholics and that of the dissenters. And practically, perhaps, in the actual condition of Europe, the question now in agitation might be permitted to rest there. But in fairness to the Protestant feeling, it should never be forgotten that the Roman Catholic system presents a feature absent from every other variety of nonconformity. It is not a religion only, but a polity, and this in a very peculiar sense. Other systems also, as the Presbyterian, include among their doctrines an opinion in favor of some particular church government, which opinion, however, professing to be derived from Scripture by use of private judgment, stands in their case on the same footing with every other article of their creed. You might differ from John Knox about synods without prejudice to your agreement in all else. But with the Roman Church, it is different. Romish Church is different. It is not that her religion contains a polity, that her polity contains the whole religion. The truth she publishes exists only as in its keeping, and rests only on its guarantee. If you invalidate it, they would vanish, like the promissory notes of a corporation whose charter was proved false. Christianity, in her view, is not a doctrine productive of institutions through spontaneous action on individual minds, but an institution, the perpetual source of doctrine for individual obedience and trust. Revelation is not a mere communication of truth, not a transitory visit from heaven to earth, ascertained by human testimony and fixed in historical records, but a continuous incarnation of deity, a permanent real presence of the infinite in certain selected persons and consecrated objects. The same divine epiphany which began with the person of the Savior has never since abandoned the world. It exists in all its awfulness and power, only embodied no longer in a redeeming individual, but in a redeeming church. The word of inspiration, the deed of miracle, the authority to condemn and to forgive remain as when Christ taught in the temple, walked on the sea, denounced the Pharisee, and accepted the penitent. These functions, as exercised by him, were only in their incipient stage. He came to exemplify them indeed, but chiefly to incorporate them in a body which should hold and transmit them to the end of time. From his person they passed to the College of the 12, under the headship of Peter, and thence in perpetual apostleship to the bishops and pastors, ordained through legitimate hands for the governance of disciples. These officers are the sole depositaries, the authorized trustees of divine grace, whose decision whether they open or shut the gate of mercy is registered in heaven, and is without appeal. Not that they can play with this power and dispose of it by arbitrary will. The media through which it is to flow have been divinely appointed. Its channels are limited to certain physical substances and bodily acts or postures, selected at first hand for the purpose. Water at one time, bread at another, oil at a third, handling of the head at a fourth, the infusion of the supernatural efficacy into these alveoli depend on an act of the appointed official, through whom alone the divine matter, no longer choked up, can have free currency into the persons of believers. To this inheritance of miracles added the stewardship of inspiration. The episcopate is keeper of the Christian records, as those records are only the first germ of an undeveloped revelation with the same body is left the exclusive power of unfolding their significance and directing the growth and expansion of their ever fertile principles. Whatever interpretation the hierarchy may put upon the scriptures, whatever doctrine or discipline they may announce as agreeable with the mind of God, must be accepted as infallible and authoritative. The same spirit of absolute truth which spoke in the living voice of Christ, which guided the pen of evangelists, still prolongs itself in the thought and counsels of bishops, and renders their collective decisions binding as divine oracles. The people who form the obedient mass of the Catholic body are not without a share of this miraculous life in the soul, not indeed for the discernment of any new truth, but for the apprehension of the old. The moment the disciple is incorporated in the church, faith bursts into sight. He passes from opinion into knowledge. He perceives the objects of his worship and the truth of his creed with more than the certainty of sense. And he bows before the altar and commits himself to the Mother of God. The real presence and invisible world are as immediately with him as the breviary and the crucifix. Through the whole Catholic atmosphere is diffused the preternatural medium of clairvoyance, at which every thought of its ritual vibrates into activity and opens to adoring view mysteries hid from minds without. Now, with the spiritual aspects of this theory, we are not concerned. Reason has no jurisdiction over the inspiration that transcends it. But there is a humbler task to which the common intellect is not incompetent. When we plant this system in a political community, set it down beside the state, imagine it surrounded by families and schools and municipalities and parliaments, by the prison and the court of justice. Within the shadow of law and in the presence of sovereignty, we may ask how it will work amid these august symbols of a nation's life, and how it adjusts itself in relation to them. Will it leave them to their free development? Can it tranquilly coexist with them and be content to see them occupy the scope which English traditions and English usage have secured for them? We are convinced it cannot, that every step it may make is an encroachment upon the wholesome liberty, that it is innocent only where it is insignificant, and where it is ascendant, will neither part with power nor use it well, and that it must needs raise the highest pitch of the common vice of tyrannies and of democracies, the relentless crushing of minorities. The above are only 2 paragraphs out of a dozen we had marked, but they will suffice to show the value of this very able and impartial essay. Footnotes. Adequate authority for these statements we found in Dr. Mockler's Symbolism, Part 1, Chapter 5, and in Newman's Lectures for 3, page 66, Lecture Exposum. Oh my goodness, Boswell! The killing of Sir Alexander Boswell. Oh, that's it too, yeah. The late Dr. Troost. Oh, we've got original poetry. Well, these two are small enough. Who is Dr. Troost? We recently noticed the death of the eccentric German professor Dr. Trost of Tennessee. His passion for all animals of the serpent kind was well known, and we will find it illustrated in this anecdote related by Sir Charles Lyell. Everything of the serpent kind he has a particular fancy for, and has always a number of them that he has tamed in his pockets and under his waistcoat, to loll back in his rocking chair, to talk about geology, and pat the head of a large snake when twining itself about his neck, is to him supreme felicity. Every year in the vacation he makes an excursion to the hills, and I was told that upon one of these occasions, being taken up by the stagecoach, which had several members of Congress in it going to Washington, the learned doctor took his seat on the top with a large basket, the lid of which was not over, and above well secured. Near to this blanket sat a Baptist preacher on his way to a great public immersion. His reverence, awaking from a reverie he had fallen into, beheld to his unutterable horror two rattlesnakes raise their fearful heads out of the basket, and immediately precipitated himself upon the driver, who, almost knocked off his seat, no sooner became apprised of the character of his Ophidian outside passengers than he jumped upon the ground with the reins in his hands, and was followed instanter by the preacher. The insides, as soon as they learned what was going on, immediately became outsides, and nobody was left but the doctor and his rattlesnakes on the top. But the doctor, not entering into the general alarm, quietly placed his great coat over the basket, and tied it down with his handkerchief, which, when he had done, he said, "Gentlemen, only don't let these poor things bite you, and they won't hurt you." That's a funny little story. Eccentric German doctor with his snakes. So who's this other person gets name dropped in an intellectual magazine of the mid 1800s? Madame Dacier, the husband of the celebrated woman André Dacier, was born at Castres in 1651 and studied at Saumur under Tinagay Lefebvre, whose daughter Anne he married in 1683. Both the husband and wife became eminent among the classical scholars of the 17th century. They were employed with others to comment upon and edit a series of the ancient authors, or the Dolphin, which formed the collection at Usam Delphini, at Usam Delphine. Madame Dacier's commentaries are considered as superior to those of her husband. She edited Callimachus, Philornis, Aurelius Victor, Etropius, and the history which goes by the name of Dictes Cretensis, all of which have been repeatedly reprinted. With her notes, she published French translations of the Amphitryon, Rudens, and Leviticus, of Plautus with good preface, of the comedies of Terence, of the Plutus and the Clouds of Astrophanes, and of Anacreon and Sappho. She also translated the Iliad and Odyssey with a preface of notes. This led to a controversy between her and Lamotte, who had spoken slightingly of Homer. Madame Dacier wrote in 1714, "Considerations sur les causes de la corruption des goths," in which she defended the cause of Homer with great vivacity, as she did also against Father Hardouin, who had written an apology of Homer, which was more a censure than an apology. The warmth, however, with which both the Daciers resented anything that was said against the ancient writers was carried to the extreme, and had at times something ludicrous in it. But Madame Dacier's enthusiasm was real, and accompanied by a pedantry or conceit. She died in 1820. Wait, is this okay? The husband of the celebrated woman, André Dacier, was born in 1651, whose daughter he married in 1863. So he married her in 1863, and she died in 1820. So 100 years would be 1783. 120, 137 years. is it 137 years from when he married her? That when she oh, poetry.
Okay? Do you think the Kurds will answer Trump's call? Fuck yes. That's not even a question. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And now we know, okay? Now it's confirmed, pretty much. It's all but confirmed. Why do you think the American-Israeli strike team has been peppering Border Patrol on the Iran-Iraq border for the last 76 hours? What do you think is the reason for that? The reason for that is so that they can send in the Kurdish militias because they don't have any popular ground forces to destabilize the country. And then they can like propagandize it like this is a real revolution taking place. Look. President Trump spoke by phone with Kurdish leaders in Iraq on Sunday to discuss the U.S.-Israel war with Iran and what might come next. 3 sources of my knowledge of the call told Mark A. Capito. I told you that they were going to do this from day one. I told you that they were going to do this, and they're doing it. Do the Kurds not feel some type of way after they were abandoned in Syria? Fuck no. Brother, that's the expectation.
Oh my gosh, they're clips for the car. And I guess you put them on the little fold down, so each person can have their little oh there it is. And then it clips. Oh my god, I love little doohickeys. Thank you so much, little visor holder, yes. These are all gifts from Arthur's Special. Yay! That's awesome. And it's funny because there's a map there too. Either way, it's a perfect.
I suppose like a lot of people, even on Twitch earlier, somebody was noticing that their chat was real slow. It's Monday, so I think a lot of people started to sign off and go to jobs or look for jobs or do something other than go crazy over the internet. Mm-hmm. Something I was gonna do, and I just keep putting it off. Anyway, 53 minutes. They need to have like hours and hours of content, just every day. Just want to stop by. One of the lurkers in the whole reverse, the low angels, low cows. Guess what's gone with Jeremy and Grace, Ben, and and who else is involved? Oh, Ro. Yeah. You technically can. Frank Abagnale Jr. works as a doctor, a lawyer, and a co-pilot for. Oh, that's a Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Apparently, the guy had a lot of different jobs. So it's like show and tell. And it's just like show and tell. I just like to show things and tell you about it. But what do I have right now that would be like, okay, well, if you ever want to come over and hang out, I have lots of things to show. Uh, product, 1990 Avanti Tokyo package, 1990 Toy Soldiers Inc. All rights reserved. Trademark of DreamWorks and Gorby are owned by Toy Soldiers Inc. Made in China to the specifications of DreamWorks, a division of Toy Soldiers Inc. Minnetonka, Minnesota. Oh my goodness. To America with love. To America. It's right there in the. Get back in the box, Gordy. That's collector's items. You maybe want to make a bid on a Gordy in a box, and here we have a Captain Marvel. Like that's a interesting looking torso. I think her legs are well, anyway, giant legs and torso. This is also look for Aussie over. Oh, also look for Captain Marvel Star Force. Huh. Hasbro.com/Captain Marvel. Uh, includes toy belt, includes doll, belt, boots, and 2 blast accessories. Product controllers may vary. Retain this information for future reference. Uh, see, Marvel, all trademarks and registered trademarks are the property of their respective owners. See 2018 Hasbro, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Isn't that cool? These are like stuff I get, stuff I collect. Okay, that's all. I don't have anybody in my thing that I get. I'm very highly unpopular. I have to pay people, and then even then they don't want to like admit